You know that meme where it shows a president before and after they got elected? And in the after picture, it looks like they literally aged 10 years. Almost as if somebody yanked them into a room and told them all of the world's secrets. Well, it's rumored that this is because of the 4-hour tape. And listen guys, you gotta stick around for this one because this is a wild story.
Today we're looking at TikToks that are secret government warnings.
This is insane. Something happened in Texas this week that should have made national headlines, but it didn't because we were all so focused on the military parade and Iran and Israel. But not only were 244 child sex offenders arrested, but 109 children were rescued during an investigation known as Operation Soteria Shield.
Thank you to all the channel members for support. I got some new channel members, so I'm gonna put you guys in right now. Remember to like the video. I'm not even gonna set like a goal for this video. If you see it, just like it. Let's see if we can get to like a lot of likes. As y'all know, we're on a road to 100K, so if you haven't subscribed, bro, what are you doing? Make sure to smash that subscribe button. Let's go.
If the world spirals into full-scale global conflict, and let's be honest, it's not looking good at this point, here's how you stay alive. These are your 5 steps to survive World War III. Pay attention, share, and follow. Cities, ports, military bases, they'll be the first to burn. If you're near DC, NYC, a NATO base, get out. Map multiple bug out routes, have a plan B, C, and D. When the sirens wail, it's already too late. When the nukes or missiles hit, walls save lives. Use sandbags, barrels, even dirt or scrap metal to shield yourself. No bunker, reinforce what you've got. Power, water, and internet, they're all gone and not coming back on. Solar power, backup batteries, Faraday bags, manual gear, and a shortwave radio. That's how you stay informed. Doors will be empty in hours, but in weeks, people are gonna do anything they have to for food or fuel. Stock water filters, meds, shelf-stable food, fuel, and hygiene gear. Barter smart and always stay armed. Don't light up at night. Don't broadcast your scent. Don't get found. Blackout curtains, silent cooking setups, and muffled generators will save your life more than any rifle. Surviving World War III won't be about gear or guns. It'll be about timing, silence, and strategy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and follow for more survival tips.
Do y'all actually think World War III is gonna be that crazy? Because it sounded like he was giving like a zombie apocalypse like tutorial. Because I'm like, I don't know if World War III is gonna have like America getting completely nuked, and if it does, we're toasted.
Remember, the government said aliens are in the ocean, and now we're seeing every one of them in the air. What if aliens are not coming down to us? They're actually trying to leave.
Yeah, I heard that theory.
Yeah, because it makes sense. Because in the forest, if fire burns down the forest, the instinct of the animal is to leave. So all aliens we're finally seeing, because they're finally coming up from the ocean. That's where they're going, fam.
Because theory is, what if there's something already set for the world, whether it be it expands into a different reality, shit just gets destroyed. But I feel like that theory with the aliens leaving, I think it holds true because it does feel like people are getting ready for something.
Yeah.
And whether it be asteroid, whether it be just like even war, something is coming, and it's kind of inevitable. I don't want to like manifest it. I don't want to like put that out into the world.
And all I'm gonna say is be careful what you believe. Like if the Project Bluebeam says that something will come down to save us, and then that's the one we praise. Remember, believe the right thing. You know what I mean?
All our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know? And I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line, but I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time, but now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends. You know, if anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane, you know, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. You know, that's what's insane about it.
Government conspiracies that actually turned out to be true. Make sure you check out part 1 about the heart attack gun. In this video, we're gonna talk about the Dead Baby Project. Now, this was called Project Sunshine, which is a really messed up name, and you'll realize why after I tell the story. So the original theory was that the government was stealing dead bodies to do radioactive testing. And the truth is, the government was stealing parts of dead bodies. But they specifically needed young tissue, so they were stealing from dead babies. These were all recently deceased babies or children, and they would take samples of their tissue and sometimes even their limbs. Each of these were collected without permission from grieving families. They did this to over 1,500 grieving families. It could be more, we'll just never know.
3 ways that the government spies on you, and the last one will freak 98% of people out. Number 1 is that they listen to your phone calls. Most American phone companies hand over people's phone records to the government. And according to NBC News, the US government monitors every single phone call made in America. Number 2 is by watching you through your laptop or phone camera. And that's why Mark Zuckerberg covers his camera with tape. And number 3 is by watching you watch TV. Governments use programs that records all the audio around your TV, while also collecting information on what you watch.
What is the government so afraid of? The US Navy sets off a 40,000-pound bomb in the Atlantic Ocean, 100 miles from the coast of Florida, saying that it was only a military exercise. However, looking at the footage of the explosion, it definitely didn't seem like a regular military exercise. Furthermore, it's known that there are unknown creatures or aliens living deep in the ocean. So, could it be possible that it wasn't a military exercise, but a cover-up to take out a deadly threat in the ocean? With this suspicious military exercise, many are asking,
personally offered me $2 billion to not pursue what I was doing. Someone in the photo lab took a picture of a picture. It's an extraterrestrial on a dissection with a group of doctors and what looked like some suits in the background. Yeah, arms, legs, head. The head is covered with a towel. Apparently it was badly mutilated. It had a weird, almost like a spine on the front, like we have a sternum, that you could see, like a bumpy thing. Different hands and feet. Not tiny. I think it was around 5 feet. It's hard to tell from this photo. I have the documents. I have the trace landing. I have the U.S. military Air Force people's testimony that were there. When one of these, in this case it was an extraterrestrial vehicle, not one of the man-made ones. So we call them ETVs for the ones that are of extraterrestrial origin. There were 3 of these man-made UFOs, ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, hovering in this hangar.
Things that the government don't want you to know, part 24. There's no point in working a job. In 1933, the government went bankrupt, and they got rid of all of our money. And then they gave us a fiat currency called Federal Reserve notes. And they also gave us something called a credit system. Since the government is so much in debt to us, they basically offered to pay for everything. Yes, your house, your car, everything's already paid for. Why would you go work for $15 an hour and you work half your shifts for free because they take 50% of your income, when all you really have to do is walk into the bank with a good credit score and they'll give you some imaginary numbers on a plastic card? Make that make sense.
The biggest leak of government secrets ever began in December of 2012 with a single email delivered to an IP address in Rio de Janeiro.
Glenn Greenwald, one of the world's busiest journalists, is sitting in his home in Rio, and he sees an email from someone he doesn't know. It's not a friend, it's not his mum, and it just says, "I've got some stuff you might be interested in."
He didn't use his name, and he said very cryptically and very vaguely that he had information that he wanted to discuss with me, but could only do so if I were to install encryption.
Guardian newspaper columnist and blogger Glenn Greenwald didn't pay much attention to the email.
99% of the time it ends up that they're crazy or delusional, or the story is just not very good.
And this guy or girl, we don't know who it is persistent. So a few days later, emails again and says, "Look, Glenn, can you do this thing?" And Glenn still doesn't do it. This attempt, basically, to leak all of these secrets, initially just goes straight into the sand.
The source moved on, this time to Berlin. He was soon exchanging emails with American documentary filmmaker Laura Poitras.
She'd been in contact for over a month with a mysterious source who had reached out to her using her encryption key and using anonymous channels, and said he had a big story for her.
A few weeks later in New York, Poitras met national security investigative reporter Barton Gellman at a Greenwich Village restaurant.
This was something she wanted to be exceptionally careful about. We agreed on a cafe to meet at, and we also, I think, both understood that when we got there, we'd move to someplace else.
Poitras asked Gilman to vet the source and meet him electronically.
Her source, who became also my source, needed to take very special precautions in the usual NSA style, and so he called me Brass Banner, and he called himself Virax, which means truth teller in Latin.
Through sophisticated encrypted messages, Virax promised an unprecedented scoop, but it came with a warning.
He believed he was risking his freedom and possibly his life, and he warned me as well that if the U.S. intelligence community believed that by getting rid of me, they could prevent this story from happening, he said that my life would be at risk.
In late May, Virax surprised Gilman and Poitras. He sent them an invitation.
He said, "Your destination is Hong Kong."
Poitras wanted to go. Barton Gilman, worried about a secret meeting in a foreign country like China, decided not to. But Poitras knew someone who might join her. That spring, Glenn Greenwald arrived in New York to deliver a speech.
And we met that night in my hotel in the lobby, and she showed me these emails that she had been exchanging with this person who was claiming that he was a national security state insider with access to very sensitive information that he believed to be very incriminating, and stated very definitively that he wanted to turn it over to her and to me.
Greenwald decided to join Poitras.
We all knew that this was incredibly risky and uncertain, but the story had to be reported.
In June, Poitras and Greenwald headed to the airport.
I think they're kind of quite excited, but there's also a sort of feeling that maybe this is just the most terrific hoax.
They were joined by Ewan McCaskill, a veteran Guardian reporter.
At the time, I didn't think it was for real, didn't take it that seriously, and thought it was a slightly obscure story.
Once they were finally airborne, Poitras thought it was safe to share with Greenwald something the source had securely sent to her.
That's kind of quite a moment there in a secure space, and so Laura creeps forward to go and see Glenn.
Laura whips out this thumb drive and in a very sort of almost mischievous way says, you know, guess what this is, and told me that she had just received a fairly large archive of documents.
They kind of can't control their excitement because this is clearly the biggest story that anyone's worked on since the Pentagon Papers in the 1970s.
That were about a wide range of surveillance activities that came directly from some of the most sensitive areas of the agency.
I could see out the corner of my eye Glenn with the light on throughout this 13-hour flight, you know, reading on his laptop all the time, Laura coming to see him, them having chats, and Glenn getting more and more excited.
We essentially couldn't believe what it was that we had, and that was really the first time I think I fully understood that this was going to be unlike any other story really ever in American journalism or politics.
In Hong Kong, Greenwald and the others traveled to a hotel in Kowloon.
Snowden's instructions to Glenn and Laura are like a kind of magical mystery tour crossed with something out of John le Carré. He tells them to go to a hotel, the Mirror Hotel in Hong Kong, and says that he will meet them in a less trafficked part of the hotel, next to a shopping mall, by a bench and a crocodile.
We had still no idea of who he was, what his age was, what his race was. We knew nothing about him demographically at all. And so the plan that he picked was that he would be holding a Rubik's Cube in his hand so that when he entered the room, we would immediately know who he was.
All of a sudden, this guy comes past with a Rubik's Cube, scramble up, which is part of the kind of code. But the man before them is not what they expected. They expected some grizzled CIA veteran wearing a blue blazer, maybe with a bit of dandruff, with a tie, receding grey hair, and they get this callow, sort of thin-limbed student type who looks as if he's just out of high school. And he is their source. And he's supposedly the guy who's got the crown jewels.
When this 29-year-old kid who looked a lot younger shows up, it was extremely disorienting and introduced a real awkwardness to our interaction and kind of a shock.
Edward Snowden led the group upstairs to his room.
In his bedroom, by the door, he'd piled pillows as high up the door jambs as he could and pillows along the bottom. So if somebody was outside eavesdropping, it would make it harder for them.
There was always this kind of uncertainty, one might even say danger, hovering over the room, especially for the first few days, because we didn't know what the NSA knew about what he was doing. So we thought it was very possible that the door could be barged down at any moment and someone could enter to arrest Snowden.
They painstakingly debriefed Snowden for days. At one point, Guardian reporter Ewan McCaskill sent a text message to his editor in New York, Janine Gibson.
Janine knew that I liked Guinness, so she said, if Snowden is for real, send me a message and just say the Guinness is good. And I was 100% sure that Snowden and the documents were for real. I sent a message to Janine saying the Guinness is good.
The documents Snowden delivered revealed the history and details of one of the United States government's most closely guarded secrets. It was known as the Program. The program began on September 11, 2001, at Fort Meade in Maryland.
Biggest story in Washington now, people talking about Michael Jordan's comeback.
The headquarters for the National Security
Does it look
Agency.
like September or what? What a gorgeous day.
I'm in my office. Remember the day? Brilliantly clear day, clear blue skies.
I was in his suite waiting for a meeting, and we had started up the hallway to his office when the first plane hit the tower.
My executive assistant, a young woman, came in and said, hey, we got reports of a plane hitting the World Trade Center, and like 300 million other Americans, I thought, wow.
On a $300 television set tuned to CNN in the director's office.
At the White House, there was chaos, a near total evacuation.
Secret Service bursts into the vice president's office, basically frog marches him by one arm and the seat of his pants into this deep underground shelter that was built to withstand nuclear war.
Almost immediately, Cheney directed his lawyer, David Addington, to prepare the case for the president to exercise his unilateral authority as commander-in-chief.
David Addington, principal the vice president, was interested in ensuring that the president's constitutional authority was used to its fullest.
Cheney says, I want you to tell me what powers we're going to need, the president's going to need, that he doesn't already have to respond to this calamity.
And they decide that they're going to push every boundary they have. Addington at one point says, we're going to push and push and push until some larger force makes us stop.
Tours of the Capitol will be canceled indefinitely.
received 4,000 reports of bombs and
On September 12th at NSA headquarters, the mood was somber.
Question, where did it all begin? And
we began soul searching almost immediately. We all felt like a great wrong had been done and that we were all somewhat, if not all, culpable.
A fate which will live in infamy.
You have to remember that NSA was created after World War II to prevent another surprise attack. That was the whole raison d'etre for NSA. Pearl Harbor, we don't want another Pearl Harbor.
Information that more people involved in the plot to remain in the United States.
Immediately, we began to wonder what we had done wrong. Why did we miss the boat? What didn't we detect that we should have detected?
the investigation continues in this country.
In the aftermath, troubling questions emerged from deep inside the agency. Why hadn't the NSA been able to connect the dots?
It was a very cautious agency. It's an agency that is fighting with one hand tied behind its back out of a fear of a political backlash by being too aggressive.
The president now at the door?
During the Nixon administration,
A final wave.
the NSA had overstepped, spied on Americans.
Certainly appears to violate the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution.
Caught and restricted by Congress, the domestic spying apparatus went dark for more than 20 years. It was against the law to turn the NSA on Americans.
From what I've heard that everything before 9/11 was completely different. Like, going to the airport was way more chiller. The TSA wasn't, I mean, I don't even think there was a TSA. I'm not even too sure, but like I just remember like there's a lot of people used to tell me like security for airports used to be so much more like relaxed and not as strict.
There was a guy that was talking about how there's a secret government that our government don't even know about. So he was basically saying that this secret government has its own navy, has its own air force, has its own funding system, and it's like completely secret to the people. They have technology that's like more advanced than our most advanced plane that we have. They learn to take energy out of a small area. It's like some advanced physics, and it's something like if we give it to the people, there'll be free energy all around the world.
Damn, we're definitely on Mars, bro. If we got something like that, you put that in an engine, bro, we're on Mars.
That's
bro.
what I'm saying. But it's like, what is the point of having something that low key?
For weapons, like, we know there's aliens, so aliens coming to fight us, we need something defense. Also, like, control. Say really start rioting, Russia act up or something, anybody act up, now we have something like a real deterrent. Like, yo, calm down before, like a nuke.
Low key, before we dropped the nuke, nobody knew what a nuke was.
Yeah.
Now everybody got nukes. So you gotta drop a nuke? Nah, we are 10 steps ahead of you.
This is insane. Something happened in Texas this week that should have made national headlines, but it didn't because we were all so focused on the military parade and Iran and Israel. But not only were 244 child sex offenders arrested, but 109 children were rescued during an investigation known as Operation Soteria Shield. And this thing was a massive months-long collaborative effort between 70 local law enforcement agencies and the FBI. It details like how these predators were luring in children because it wasn't just through social media, but even through online gaming as well. And they suggest that these 244 could just be the tip of the iceberg because during the operation, investigators seized extensive volumes of digital evidence, which they say may lead to the arrests of even more perpetrators. And I can't believe I missed this. So everyone should know 109 children were rescued this week and 244 predators have been caught. That is news right there.
Dome in history.
I mean, I've heard that Trump was actually inspired by Israel's Iron Dome, so he made a golden dome. And I heard that Israel's Iron Dome is only like 90% effective because when Iran retaliated the other day, I looked at all of this on stream. If you guys were there on my stream on Saturday, there was like 500 people while I was streaming. Absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much for that. But we saw that when Iran retaliated against Israel, a lot of the bombs actually came through their Iron Dome. So the effectiveness is kind of wobbly, but you know what I'm saying? It definitely protected, I think, majority of the attacks.
Did you know the black box that everyone desperately searches for after a plane crash is actually not one, but two devices? The first one is called the cockpit voice recorder. You can think of it as a high-end recorder with 4 microphones. One captures communication between the pilots and air traffic control to record conversations between the pilots themselves. The last one picks up ambient sounds inside the cockpit. Things like button clicks, alarms, even knocks and breathing sounds can all be recorded. The second black box is the flight data recorder. It continuously tracks the plane's altitude, speed, heading, position. Some advanced models can even generate 3D animations from the data, allowing investigators to visually replay the incident like watching a movie. So how is all this crucial data preserved? At the heart of the black box is a hard drive, sealed inside a heat-resistant, corrosion-proof shell made of titanium or stainless steel. No matter how hard it crashes or how long it burns, the data inside inside usually survives. And there's a secret weapon at the bottom, an underwater locator beacon. If the black box ends up underwater, it emits ping, ping, ping ultrasonic signals to help rescuers locate it with precision and recover it as quickly as possible. So don't be fooled by its plain appearance. It's the key to uncovering the truth behind an air crash.
Science now says that if you had a rough childhood growing up, your brain appears to mature faster for emotional survival, which explains why certain kids don't do well in school. So in the next minute, I'll explain the hidden cost of adversity and what it does to our brain and how we can shift from surviving to thriving. A recent study scanned the brains of thousands of kids who faced childhood adversity, such as serious illness, family conflict, and relocation. And what's fascinating is that the brain's emotional centers, such as the amygdala and the hippocampus, had weaker connections, suggesting that the brain's emotional system is maturing faster to help these kids adapt to stress. And in the study, kids with these brain patterns showed fewer signs of anxiety and depression. But the hidden cost of this is academic performance. Because the brain is prioritizing emotional survival, things such as learning, memory, and attention get thrown in the backseat. And to shift from surviving to thriving, the Harvard Center on Developing Children recommends that we support nurturing relationships that invites trust in these kids. And through the safety, caretakers can then guide these kids through real-life skills such as naming, navigating, and expressing these emotions, because true resilience isn't taught overnight, it must be experienced by these kids. Key takeaway here is that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because your brain is constantly adapting itself, and with the right support, you can thrive.
India flight from Ahmedabad to London was carrying 242 people, 230 passengers and 12 crew members. All lost their lives except one survived. Interestingly, a man seated in 11A near an emergency exit reportedly pushed the damaged emergency door after the crash. Mysteriously, a man walked out of the plane with no serious injury. We'll look at the various scenarios, how it might have crashed. Was it dual engine failure, or the shoe of the flaps are retracted or not retracted? All analysis in the video ahead. Here is the detailed timeline. At 1:39 p.m., Flight AI-171 took off from runway 23 at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport in Ahmedabad. Weather conditions were reported to be stable with clear skies and good visibility, ideal for flying. Moments after takeoff, the aircraft climbed to an altitude of approximately 625 feet, or about 191 meters. Then, without warning, it began to lose altitude rapidly, within a few minutes around 1:42 p.m. It is here the flight crew made a distress call, declaring a mayday to air traffic control. This urgent signal indicated a critical emergency. Tragically, it was the last communication ever received from the aircraft. In the 2 minutes that followed, radar and DSB tracking data showed that the aircraft had vanished from monitoring systems, indicating a sudden and uncontrollable descent. At around 1:44 p.m., the aircraft crashed into Meghani Nagar, a densely populated neighborhood just outside the airport perimeter. The plane struck a hostel building on the campus of BJ Medical College, where students were inside. The impact caused a massive explosion, followed by thick plumes of black smoke rising above the crash site. We do have several possible scenarios to consider. However, it's important to remember that the investigation is still ongoing, so these should be taken with a grain of salt. One particularly remarkable detail has emerged. The sole survivor of the Air India Flight AI-171 crash reportedly heard a loud noise just 30 seconds after takeoff. We'll come back to that, but for now, let's take a look at how he managed to survive. The passenger, Vishwas, was seated in 11A, a seat located in the first row of the economy cabin, close to an emergency exit on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. As the aircraft began to lose altitude rapidly and headed toward a residential area, it was initially unclear whether it had struck a building. However, according to reports, Vishwas reportedly managed to push open the damaged emergency door and walk out of the wreckage. Contrary to earlier reports suggesting he had jumped, he actually walked away from the crash site. This was possible because the plane had only climbed to about 625 feet before losing control, meaning it was flying at a relatively low altitude. Such an escape may have been physically possible under these circumstances. It all remains incredibly dangerous and nearly unimaginable. Coming back to the survivor, he reported hearing a loud bang shortly after takeoff. This sound might have been an engine failure. What's puzzling is that no smoke was visible in any of the video footage taken at the time. That absence of visible smoke raises the possibility that both engines may have lost thrust simultaneously. Such a scenario could result from a mechanical failure within the engines or a problem with the aircraft's fuel system. Either way, losing thrust from both engines right after takeoff would make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the aircraft to gain altitude or maintain controlled flight. There's also speculation about a potential mechanical failure involving the aircraft's control surfaces, specifically the flaps, which play a crucial role in generating lift during takeoff. Any malfunction here could have resulted in an immediate and dangerous drop in altitude. On the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, including those operated by Air India, standard procedure during takeoff involves extending the flaps to a specific setting, typically flaps 5 or higher. The exact setting depends on the aircraft's weight, the runway length, and other performance-related factors. Once the aircraft has safely accelerated and gained altitude, the flaps are gradually retracted. This process is essential for transitioning the aircraft into climb mode. However, in the case of the Air India crash in Ahmedabad, it appears the flaps were either fully retracted or not extended at all during takeoff, an abnormal and highly dangerous condition. Taking off with flaps retracted or retracting them too soon drastically reduces lift at low speeds and altitudes. This compromises the aircraft's ability to climb and significantly increases the risk of a stall or complete loss of control. Just wanted to let you know, I was flying on a different version of a Boeing plane during my... It's also very important to study another case plane crash scenario which hit a bird to help us understand better. This South Korean airline was granted permission to land from the south on runway 1 northward. But control tower cautions against bird activity, so the aircraft made a slight deviation in flight path. The pilot declares Mayday after it hit a couple of birds, and it was instructed to make a go-around and land on runway 19 southward. It was at this moment the airplane encountered another problem with the landing gear, which did not open. Finally, the plane had to make a belly landing with what was supposedly a landing gear failure because it hit in the middle of the runway and crashed into the elevated localizer antenna and concrete, erupting into a huge fireball, while the tail section remained intact. More details all in the video ahead. Let's take a closer look at the airport and its surroundings. The airport is located near the ocean, giving it a scenic yet strategic position. The primary feature of the airport is its single runway, designated runway 0119, which measures 2,800 meters, which is approximately 9,186 feet in length. While this may seem relatively short for an international airport, it is more than adequate under normal circumstances. For comparison, depending on landing weight and runway conditions, aircraft like the Boeing 737 can safely land on runways as short as 1,500 meters. This is around 4,900 feet. This makes the runway at the airport more than sufficient for standard operations. Now let's move to a top-down camera angle for a broader view. As you can see, the area features known bird feeding and roosting zones. These are distributed across approximately 4 distinct areas, spanning from the southern to the northern edges of the airport vicinity. These zones are important to consider for both environmental monitoring and aviation safety. And finally, we have the localizer. Normally, on an airport with a runway at the end, you don't have a wall-like structure. The concrete structure holds a navigation system that assists aircraft landings and takeoffs. At 4 meters high, it is covered with dirt and was raised to keep the localizer level with the runway to ensure it functions properly. The black box recorder has been transported to Seoul, where analysis began immediately after the arrival of the investigation team. The Ministry of Transport has also released the following detailed timeline of events. At 8:54 local time, Muon Airport Air Traffic Control, ATC, clears Flight 7C2.
Yeah, we also looked at that on the live stream Saturday. If you guys were there, we saw that this dude actually survived. He was actually on the plane, because I remember I had a theory that maybe when the plane hit the building, he was in the building, got stunned, and then like thought that he was in the plane or something like that. But like now that actually has his ticket, and he was seated in seat 11A, and he somehow survived a plane crash, which is crazy.
You know that meme where it shows a president before and after they got elected? And in the after picture, it looks like they literally aged 10 years. Almost as if somebody yanked them into a room and told them all of the world's secrets. Well, it's rumored that this is because of the 4-hour tape. And listen guys, you gotta stick around for this one because this is a wild story. Aaron was one of these low-level employees. He always kept quiet and he just tried to fly under the radar. It was nighttime at the office and there was something he really wanted to get done before the weekend. So he was working later than usual. He was almost ready to pack up and head home when he printed a document on what he thought was the printer in his immediate vicinity. The notification on his computer showed that the document was being printed, but he didn't hear any noise or paper coming from the printer. That's when he checked the name of the device he selected. He noticed it was being printed at another printer on a completely different floor. Now, normally a person would have just forgotten about that and reprinted the document on the right printer, but there's a really strict rule on making sure that all confidential documents are accounted for. He got up, went to the elevator, and rode to the 7th floor. As the elevator doors opened, he noticed that the entire floor was dark. He spotted the printer across the room and started making his way towards it. But before he got to the printer, he noticed a glow coming from one of the meeting rooms down the hall. Being the nice guy he is, he figured he'd go down and turn the light off and save the office a little bit of money. As he stepped into the room and reached for the light switch, he was startled to see a group of about 10 men all huddled around a snack table. And there were rows of the fanciest folding chairs he'd probably ever seen. At the front of the room sat an old TV on a cart. "Mr. Knightley, we've been waiting for you for over 15 minutes. Get the hell in here." Aaron began to stutter as he tried to tell him that you got the wrong guy, but he was immediately cut off. "I don't care why you're late, just get in here, grab a plate of snacks, and sit down. We're starting soon. Put your phone, your watch, and anything else that can record audio or video into the bag." Something about his sternness and tone short-circuited Aaron's brain. For guys like him, there's a third option beyond fight or flight. It's called just go with it until it's over. He dropped his phone and his watch into the bag, and the gentleman made his way to the front of the room, where he stood next to just a serious-looking man. There was also a Secret Service-looking guy standing in the corner. One of the men pulled out a VHS tape from his bag, and he put it in the TV and pressed play. Aaron's mind was racing as he began recalling all of the rumors that he's heard in the past. The beginning was familiar enough to him. Various disclaimers about this being incredibly confidential material. It showed insignias of relevant organizations and just all of that stuff he's seen a million times. But then, something caught his eye. The next insignia that popped up on the screen looked kind of strange to him. He couldn't exactly tell what it was, but something was definitely off. It had the same eagle that he was used to, but this time, there was a navy blue hand on the left shoulder of the eagle. Did they update the logo? Before he had time to think about it, they cut to another logo. And this one, he most definitely has never seen before. Committee for the Protection and Preservation of Human Consciousness. The logo was an image of the planet Earth nestled inside of a seal type design. Then, it cut to a room that looked similar to the Congress floor. But there were some strange differences. The seats were farther apart, and the whole entire room seemed to be on a really steep incline, not what he's used to on the regular Congress floor. As the camera panned around the room, it looked like there were about 50 people gathered around. The recording seemed to be really old, since it was recorded in black and white, almost like it was a video shot in like the 40s or 50s. The tape lingered on this one shot for quite a while. Then it panned over to the corner, where there was a choir huddled together, talking amongst themselves. After a few more minutes, the tape abruptly cut to an awkward angle video of the man speaking at the podium. It was too zoomed in on the lower half of his face, so you couldn't really see his eyes or his hair or anything like that. Aaron could tell whoever recorded this definitely wasn't a professional. The man at the podium began to speak. "Members of the Committee for the Protection and Preservation of Human Consciousness, I thank you all for coming tonight. We are lucky to be in the good graces of our visitors today. Without rehashing our painful history, we can all acknowledge that the journey it took to get to this very moment in time has been a very difficult and very strenuous task. I am pleased to say that humanity, faced with a dire ultimatum, has come to a majority decision. To our esteemed guests from across the solar system, we are thankful for the opportunity you have given us to negotiate with you today." Aaron's heart beat out of his chest as adrenaline began surging through his body. He couldn't believe that they had actually made contact with extraterrestrial life. The man at the podium continued speaking. "Before I outline the decisions taken by humanity, I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank the brilliant representatives from all the nations all over the world, who came together to ensure that this decision was taken with the utmost responsibility, care, and appreciation for our human species. I am aware that this was not a unanimous decision." What did that mean? Aaron sunk down into his chair as he felt a nauseous feeling starting in his stomach. The tape returned to a now corrected angle of the speaker at the podium. His eyes were now visible and they looked strained, almost as if he hadn't slept for weeks. And when his eyes looked at the camera, you could see the sadness in his eyes, like he'd seen multiple versions of hell. "To the nations who still disagree," he continued, "I thank you nonetheless for accepting the majority decision that we have made today. May this moment, which will be held in secrecy throughout the rest of time, be appreciated as a critical milestone for human civilization. Tonight is not a victory. It is a somber moment that we share. However, we are faced with two options: extinction or accepting the agreement. We made our choice, and I believe time will show that this was the right decision. I hereby announce that we accept the agreement provided by our special guests. This intergalactic species will allow humanity on planet Earth to continue to populate, grow, and innovate. In return, all governments of the world will honor the promise. Aaron was on the edge of his seat. He needed to spit it out. What was this agreement? At this point, the video showed the man at the podium, and for the first time, he looked nervous, scared even. We honor the agreement that these beings hold the right to visit the planet Earth on a reoccurring basis. They will be allowed to consume the majority of the human population inhabiting Earth in order to get the nourishment they desperately seek. After every visit, the remaining humans will be expected to breed in time for the next visit. We acknowledge that we will maintain a parallel history which will be shared with our world's population to ensure that humanity stays motivated to continue existing and evolving as a species. This parallel history may suggest that mass extinction events are a result of free will and sin among men, and they must never know that this is in fact our inevitable and unavoidable doom, put upon us by external forces. For the first time, Aaron's fight or flight response was actually flight. He wanted to escape so badly, to just run away and never look back, but he didn't know what he'd even be running from. The last visit was in the year 1346, and it lasted 7 years. We will continue to honor our parallel history about this event. The next visit, which will not be met with resistance, will be in the year 2028, and it will run for 1 full calendar year, marking a 675-year gap between the last significant visit and the next one. The visiting cadence is expected to speed up over time as the remaining humans continue to improve their technology and reproduce in a speedy and more productive manner. Aaron's eyes began to water. He so badly wanted to look away, but he couldn't. The tape then cut away to a larger view of the room. The committee members looked somber and broken, still contemplating whether they made the right choice or not. And the members of the choir all stood frozen in the corner. Their faces looked white and their expressions showed pure horror. The camera then panned over to a row of empty seats. Aaron was confused. What were they recording? Then he noticed the seats themselves looked kind of blurry. The man at the podium carried on with his speech as the cameras kept its focus on the blurry seats. We should acknowledge the privilege of knowing that there is indeed life in the cosmos, that extraterrestrial life has chosen to visit our planet, and that the cycle and balance provided by nature extends far beyond the confines of planet Earth. Much like humanity has found its place on Earth in the food chain, we acknowledge our place in the divine order of things, and we should be honored to have an encounter with beings of such great power, understanding, cognitive function, and evolutionary progression. Aaron's thoughts began to race. I shouldn't have stayed late. I should have made my identity clear from the beginning. I knew that I wasn't supposed to see this. I just knew it. The speaker then began to stutter. It almost appeared as if he was going to cry. While the process of consumption it's a painful and lengthy one, we respect the trade-off that comes with our preservation of our species. Our species should be honored and proud to be the only species in all of the cosmos that possess the great power that our visiting species seeks. We are blessed
that there are secret underground cities all around you.
Do you remember this TikToker who suddenly died after claiming that he discovered a giant on top of a hill? Just months after his mysterious death, another man went viral for claiming that he saw a giant entering a massive secret door in the mountain.
Right up there. That thing was open. It opened completely.
Secret doors
and then
all
it closed
over,
back
yo.
up.
He described it just like the recent video of an alleged giant sighting. The difference is that the giant door has a peephole in it.
And there's a little slot in it right up there. You can see that little slot where it looked like somebody was staring out of. Dude, giants are freaking real. I don't care what anybody says.
This video instantly went super viral. Immediately, fans requested that he go back and investigate further, and he immediately did.
We're going to get up there. We're going to get what we need to get done.
He also noticed suspicious marks on the way to the alleged giant door.
The spot in the mountain right here, as it goes up, that's really worn different from the rest of the hillside. It looks like drag marks, like something's dragging something up there, like continuously dragging something, like pulling something up the hillside.
But his next video started to scare his fans. You realize that he's being followed just like Andrew Dawson.
We just been staying
Government
kind of low
agents,
key.
y'all.
When I wake up in the morning and I'm going, this is what I run into. It's down the road. And then sometimes it's up the other side of the road. And sometimes it just follows me around town. And there's a white truck that does the same thing.
He's not faking it because he even caught these white trucks on camera.
The government is hiding so much right beneath our feet, y'all. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay weird.
I mean, I can see how it could be possible, but I feel like it's also a stretch to a sense. Like, there's definitely things that the government is hiding from us, but I don't know if it's necessarily like giants in mountains.
This right here is Netanyahu's plane. And guess what? It is leaving Israel as he initiates a conflict and runs off to Cyprus, leaving the people of Israel who did not make this decision to pay for his action. Israel started this. Israel struck Iran first. And Netanyahu decides while the drones are on their way to Israel to get in a plane and run, letting the people of Israel face the consequences of his action. Make sure to follow me on this account as I continue to break news about Israel. Kim Jong-un has just said they are ready to fully enter the war between Iran and Israel, and that the North Korean military is prepared to shoot down Israeli aircraft over Iranian airspace. North Korea condemned Israeli action in Gaza, the West Bank, and now striking Iran without provocation, stating that Israel is the true aggressor in the Middle East, and they are ready to defend Iran from Israeli aggression. The ball is fully in Iran's court on whether they will accept North Korea as an ally in this conflict or not, as North Korea said they are ready to fully enter this and support Iran, while countries like Russia, who have actual defense agreements with Iran, have been a little bit more hesitant. The Russians, as of now, are supplying military equipment to Iran, but are not ready to enter the war, unlike North Korea, though Putin has offered to mediate talks to find a peaceful solution. As of right now, it is very unlikely that Iran will allow North Korea to enter this war and assist them, because it would provide allies of Israel like the US, the UK, France, who have a justification to enter the war against Iran. Make sure to follow me here for the newest updates and for the truth.
Don't scroll, this shit getting crazy, y'all. These two Chinese nationals just got caught smuggling a biological pathogen into the US, y'all. And it's not just any pathogen, y'all. They said this junk can wipe out entire wheat and corn supply, y'all. Like, I'm talking about gone.
Two Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen into the United States. And this pathogen is considered a serious threat to our food supply and thus our national security.
This wasn't no accident, y'all. The FBI is calling it agro-terrorism. They saying they brung this shit over to fuck up our food system. One of the suspects is a researcher at the University of Michigan. And the other one, y'all, that's her boyfriend. They said this man was coming from China. He had the shit in his book bag. And the TSA officers caught that shit. And the crazy thing about this fungus, it don't just kill plants, y'all. This junk can also create toxins that's deadly for animals and humans. This shit sound like The Last of Us, right? So now the DOJ, the FBI, and even Homeland Security are coming together on this, because you never know. What if they already smuggled some shit in? This shit crazy.
What would happen if you fire a missile on the White House? Well, as soon as the missile is fired, U.S. satellites and radars spot the launch instantly from space and attempt to shoot it down. If it somehow reaches its target, Patriot missiles stationed near the White House blast it out of the sky seconds before impact, making the White House the most secure building on the planet.
Okay, breaking news, yes, even more. Iran has just responded to Israel's attack last night, and footage shows that multiple missiles have made it through Israel's Iron Dome and made impact. So here's everything we know in the first couple of hours. So firstly, everyone knew this was going to happen. Even Israel themselves said it directly after they launched their attack, so it's not really a shock. But what is interesting is that early on in the day, Iran launched about 100 drones, and they were all intercepted. So everyone was thinking, okay, is that it? No, it was not it, because they have now launched multiple waves of ballistic missiles. I think we're on around about wave 3 at the minute, and this was a whole different story. You can see a huge amount of Israeli counter missiles being shot up and intercepting them, but crucially, a number have got through and made impact. Because of this, around 5 people are confirmed to have been injured in Tel Aviv and were taken to hospital. Israel's defense minister said that Tehran will pay a heavy price for firing missiles at civilian areas, while Iran's supreme leader said that Israel will be hit with heavy blows after they launched war last night. And it looks like this back and forth will continue for at least the next few days, because Netanyahu's already delivered another address, and he said that more strikes on Iran are on the way. Donald Trump, in all of this, he said he's continued to urge Iran to make a deal or else. But then he said to Fox News today that, quote, unfortunately, some of Iran's leaders won't be returning to the negotiating table. Damn. As we know more, I'll keep you guys updated.
Like I said, we took a look at all of this on stream on Saturday. So if you weren't there for the stream, you know what I'm saying, you missed out on a lot of info. I don't know. To me, it just looks like a lot of civilian areas were being hit in that clip. Do you see it? Like, at first when I saw that, I was like, is that Miami? You know what I'm saying? I thought it was like a U.S. city, but nah, it was literally Israel. And that's crazy. Like, why aim for the civilian territories? You know what I'm saying? Like, make it just military bases and military, like, areas. Like, don't get the civilians involved. But it is war, so I guess there's no holding back.
Thank you all for watching this here video.